The last time the Dolphins started a season 4-0, the number one song on the Billboard Hot 100 was Gangsta's Paradise by Coolio.
Really?
Rest in peace.
Wow.
To get to 4-0 that season, by the way, they had to beat Cincinnati. They went 9-7.
Was that, mid-90s?
95. 1995. They went 9-7 that season, made the playoffs. In fact, the last 6 times that they've started 4-0, they made the postseason. They are 3.5-point underdogs tonight on the road against Cincinnati. All right, so with that number in mind and some others that we should consider, let's now welcome in wagering expert Jon Berger to help us fill out that ticket and get to that window. How are we feeling about this one, JB?
I love it. You're like a bastion for knowledge. Did you say Coolio? What was that lead in? That's awesome, man. I mean, where do you get that stuff?
The internet. It's this new invention that they have. It's called the Google.
I should try that. Yeah, that thing's going to really take off, I bet.
Yeah. Jon, let's start with a pick to score that first touchdown of the game tonight. Who you got?
Jeremy, let's set some context first before we get into the individual picks. There's 2 things that kind of jumped out to me that I looked at. This is going to be an awesome game to watch. The first thing is, when you look at the Bengals, this team reminds me a lot of the Bengals last year about the 3rd or 4th game. Because if you remember last year, they were in kind of this run-heavy offense. Things weren't working out, and they went to the pass-heavy offense. Burrow and those guys just took off, and they found themselves in the Super Bowl. And it kind of seems similar. Once I saw the Bengals go down against the Cowboys, which I was really surprised, and you look at last week's game, they ran the first 21 plays that they put out there, 17 of those were pass plays, and this offense looked completely different. They scored on 4 of their first 5 possessions. So I really expect to see the same kind of offense. The other thing, Jeremy, is keep in mind, Miami's defense was on the field last week for 90 snaps. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. But in terms of the question you asked me right off the top, first touchdown, I think it's Joe Mixon. I think the Bengals are going to come out in a hurry-up offense with a lot of tempo. I think they're starting to find that groove, and you can see a scenario where they're working their way downfield with that short passing game. Had some struggles on the offensive line, but they just look entirely different to me offensively. I think it's a short passing game, pass-heavy in the first quarter. You can see a scenario working their way down in the end zone. They get Mixon out of the backfield, but I think that's a safe bet. It's good value here as well.
Yeah, and those of us with Joe Mixon in our fantasy lineups will certainly be happy to see him score that first touchdown tonight. Jon, lots of skill on the field, as we have talked about, but some of those skilled players are a bit hobbled. So with that in mind, who do you think scores a touchdown at any time in this game tonight?
Whenever you see Tyreek Hill play in any game, and I don't care if he's on the IR, I'm kidding, but that guy right there is just a different breed of athlete. So I think that's a safe bet. That's one I make virtually every Sunday, because this is a guy that whenever he touches the ball, and it doesn't really matter where he's at on the field, when he touches that ball, that he can score. So I think we're actually getting value in this situation at plus 125. So that's an easy one for me. Whenever you see him play, put a little bit of money on that, because there's a good chance if he gets his hands on the ball, he's going to stick it in the end zone.
Yeah, certainly one of the best receivers that can turn a 5-yard gain into an 80-yard touchdown. They don't call him the cheetah for nothing. All right, so who do you like to go over their projected prop total as we start talking about yardage numbers here?
I think we're going to talk about Joe Burrow in touchdowns. So I think not only does he go over 1.5, I think he gets 2 touchdowns, but I think he goes over the 274 mark. I think this is going to be a pass-heavy game. I think that short passing game coming right out of the gate with a lot of tempo against a defense, as I mentioned before, was on the field. I had to double check that. It's been a long time since I've seen a defense in the NFL stay on the field for 90 snaps. So you got the short week. Keep in mind, Miami's defense was nicked up last week. They were missing 5 starters. So you add up the 5 starters, the injuries, playing 90 snaps. I think Burrow goes over the 274 mark in terms of that, but I also think he can get over the 1.5. I think he gets a couple of touchdown passes as well.
All right, so some good money tonight on Burrow to make some money. We mentioned there are some banged up players on the field tonight. I mean, it's week 4. So, I mean, everyone is dealing with something at this point. So who do you like to go under their projected total?
I think Joe Burrow. I don't think he throws a pick. I think this is a good value in this situation. He was really on fire last week. He was dialed in. It just feels like that offense to me is starting to gel a little bit. When they do need to run the football, They can turn around and do it. I understand all the offensive line questions, but I think they've got a lot of that cleaned up. I think Burrow has a good night. And how many times, Jeremy, have we sat here, when the bright lights are on, and this is kind of a must-win situation for the Bengals coming off of the loss to the Cowboys. I realize they won last week, but they need to start cranking up their season. And how many times have we seen Joe Burrow walk out on the field in this situation, bright lights, big game, nationally televised, just turn up his play? And I think you'll see it tonight.
Okay, so the spread is 3.5 to the white uni-wearing Bengals, the total at 47 and a hook. What's your play on the line then, John?
I'm not going to touch the over-under here, but I'm going to take the Bengals to cover this number. I think it's a doable situation. I'm not sure what offensively the Dolphins are going to look like with all the injuries on that side of the ball. I do have a lot of confidence in the Bengals and what they're going to look like offensively. Questions on the defensive line for the Bengals as well. But I just think Joe Burrow, I think this offense is starting to surge right now. He's one of these quarterbacks, when he gets hot, he stays hot. I think we're going to see that. I think it's going to be a great game. It's going to be a tight game, but I think the Bengals can cover this number.
Yeah, in terms of your plays so far, John, I mean, really only Tyreek Hill. Everything else is on the Bengals, expecting a big performance. So finish us off with a same-game parlay that you like. Perhaps maybe a little bit of Dolphins sprinkled in here.
Yeah. Perhaps. We got to see what's the how much do we kick off? I never totaled this, but I think the Bengals cover. I think we take the over with Burrow on 2 touchdowns, no picks. Tyreek Hill gets the touchdown, but I think Jalen Waddle. We need Jalen Waddle to kind of complete this. We need him to have a reception over 24 yards. But when we wrap all that up, I think that could be a fun little parlay that we could hit there.
John gets us plus 1,200. That's a pretty good little payout, no matter what kind of money you're putting in. He is CBS Sports HQ wagering expert Jon Berger, giving us his best Thursday football plays. Thanks very much, John, as the Dolphins and the Bengals get set to go at it. So let's recap John's picks for the games tonight. For the game tonight, lots of Bengals here. Joe Mixon to score the first touchdown. Burrow to go over his passing touchdowns, under interceptions, though, and the Bengals to cover the 3.5, the lone Dolphin bet there. Tyreek Hill to score an anytime touchdown. But then in terms of John's parlay, he does like Jalen Waddle in there to go over his receiving yard total of 23.5 yards. Longest reception.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.